Most conversations about wealth are broken. They're ahistorical. We obsess over the flavor of the month, the latest crypto trend, a new tech IPO, or the habits of a billionaire who got lucky once. We focus on individual stories, which are often just tales of survivorship bias. It's the filter that removes trends, temporary luck, and the cultural quirks of a specific decade. What survives across 5 centuries isn't a hack or a tip. It's a fundamental law of human organization. By the end of this journey, you'll stop thinking emotionally about money, about what you deserve or how hard you work. And you'll start thinking structurally. Imagine a merchant in 1520s Venice, a textile mill owner in 1840s Manchester, and a software founder in 2026 San Francisco. On the surface, their lives share nothing. Their currencies, laws, and technologies are unrecognizable to one another. But if you look at their balance sheets, the underlying mechanics of their wealth are identical. Wealth isn't irrespecific. The strategies that allowed the Medici family to dominate the Renaissance are the same strategies that allow modern private equity firms to dominate global markets today. The world changes, but the human operating system does not. We aren't looking for new information. We are looking for universal information, for the strategy that survives monarchy, democracy, capitalism, and empire alike. You may have heard the statistic that roughly 90% of significant wealth is held by those who own the means of production or the systems of exchange. Don't get hung up on the exact digit. In history and economics, 90% is shorthand for pattern density. Historians rarely see this level of consistency across unrelated societies unless something fundamental, something like gravity, is at work. There will always be outliers. The lottery winner, the person with a sudden inheritance, the high-paid performer. But these are anomalies. They are fragile. Structural wealth holders, those who stay wealthy across generations, behave differently. If a specific behavior shows up repeatedly among the wealthy across 500 years, and rarely among everyone else, it's no longer a coincidence. It's a blueprint. To understand the blueprint, we have to define our terms. What is a system? A system is a repeatable mechanism that produces value. Crucially, it functions independently of the owner's continuous physical effort. These are scalable. They don't just hold value, they generate it. The wealthiest Romans weren't just generals or senators. They were the equites, the merchant class who understood the power of the network. While a common laborer was paid by the day to move grain, the wealthy Roman merchant owned the ships. He didn't sail them. He financed the expedition. He owned the warehouses. He controlled the distribution points. He wasn't a visible laborer. He was the owner of the network that made labor possible. This shows us that even before modern banking, leveraging a system to multiply the output of one's decisions was already the primary driver of massive wealth. In the Middle Ages, the system looked different because the technology was different. In a low-tech agrarian world, land was the operating system. Land generated food, enabled taxation, and conferred political power. A peasant could work 16 hours a day every day of their life, and they would never accumulate wealth. Why? Because they lacked ownership. The lord of the manor didn't need to work harder than the peasant. He simply owned the system that captured the surplus of the peasant's work. The key lesson here is brutal but necessary. Effort without control produces survival, not surplus. Banking families, like the Medici, realized that you didn't need to own the land or the ships if you owned the flow of money itself. They created financial infrastructure. They controlled credit. They charged for access to capital. They became unavoidable intermediaries. Whether a merchant succeeded or failed, whether a king won a war or lost it, the bankers profited because they owned the system through which the money moved. The Industrial Revolution is where the gap between participation and ownership became an abyss. Before this, a master weaver could only work as fast as their hands allowed. But a factory owner could benefit from 1,000 labor hours every single day. It accelerated because technology amplified ownership. The steam engine didn't just help the worker, it allowed the owner to replace 100 workers with a system that never tired. Technology is, and always has been, a force multiplier for the person who owns the machine. Our systems are now digital, global, and nearly invisible. In the past, building a system required massive physical capital factories or land. Once you build the code, it can serve one person or 1 million people with almost no extra effort. One person today can control a system that reaches millions. The ancient pattern hasn't disappeared. It has just become more efficient. Because our entire social structure is designed to produce workers, not owners. From the age of 5, we are taught compliance. Follow the schedule. Predictability. Do the task. Get the grade. Short-term stability. Trade your time for a steady paycheck. Ownership requires the exact opposite. It requires risk tolerance, long time horizons, and the ability to endure delayed gratification. Most people are incentivized to seek the floor, a salary, rather than the ceiling, equity. This is not a moral failure. It is an incentive design issue. Societies need workers to function, so they create systems that reward participation over ownership. Now, let's be clear. This is not a critique of labor. Labor is necessary. Jobs are not bad. In fact, almost everyone, even the greatest system builders, starts by selling their labor. The distinction isn't about where you start. It's about your trajectory. The 90% use their labor as a tool to buy back their time and build or acquire systems. The other 10% remain locked into labor as an end state. This isn't about working less. Many system owners work 80 hours a week. The difference is what they are building. So, how do you apply a 500-year-old lesson to today? You stop asking, how can I earn more? And you start asking, where is my leverage? You can automate a service. Ownership today doesn't require an empire. It requires a strategic shift. Wealth is not a reward for hard work alone. It is a reward for structural positioning. It will offer you a steady wage to help build someone else's dream. There is no shame in accepting that offer as long as you recognize it for what it is, a temporary stay. The only goal that has survived 500 years of stress testing is to move from the person who works the system to the person who owns it. Because in the long run, time is the only asset that truly matters, and systems are the only way to buy it back. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more ideas that challenge the way you see the world.